went so fast. And this is like happened to me personally. Like the moment I got in the front, my heart started racing. It's like 100 miles an hour. It's like, and I got very stressed. I rarely get stressed. But that day I got very, very stressed. So I went there. Yeah. So maybe they got stressed as well because it's like one of their first time. But with time, it will get better for them because they get used to it.
ها يلا شباب. يلا شباب take your seat.
I sit down, everybody, brothers.
I just checked the report card thing, right? I didn't realize until now, but it says that me, Yasin, and Abdul Qadir. It was just me, Yasin. The perspective that was because Yasin knows Qadir very well. He knows his whole schedule, so he just wrote it up.
So what you want to remove?
Yeah, because people are thinking that he wrote it down.
Okay. Just if I wanted to find each other.
Don't check the click count.
Huh?
Don't check the click count.
Okay.
That's right.
Whether or not that other now. That's something that I should go to. السلام عليكم.
guys hear me? So, me and Masuna will be talking about the article titled The Highest Level of Tamkeen. So I was in the hall where I was presenting for someone, and I'll get started. You can go to the next slide. So the author of this article, before they joined Tamkeen, like one of their friends was telling them to join Tamkeen, and encouraging them to join Tamkeen. But it was recommended through one of their friends was telling the author of this article. Many youth groups did they wanted to run youth. So Tamkeen was one of them. And so then they joined Tamkeen. And when they first joined Tamkeen, the main intention of them to join Tamkeen was mainly to see people, talk to people, run the activities. And really the intention of learning the deen wasn't the number one priority of joining Tamkeen. And as they continue to see the benefit of Tamkeen through Sheikh Muhammad Ali, his halaqat and everything, they're like, okay, maybe Tamkeen, it is the place where I should be. There's amazing people in Tamkeen. They'll take you to the right path, get me closer to Allah and Jannah, inshallah. And so then, that's when they start to see the full benefit. They become an admin. They got admin tasks. They start to answer the quiz. And it's kind of similar to me. For example, I joined Tamkeen in around 2018. And the same thing, when I first joined Tamkeen, mainly they're just talk to people, activities, food. It wasn't really about the deen. But as I continued, saw the full benefit, listened to share and everything. And around COVID time, once we started to come back in person, that's when I fully saw the benefit of Tamkeen, not where I am, where I'm in Tamkeen and help out each other. And so it's kind of the same thing with this person. And the author of this article, they were answering the quiz, mentioned in the article. They were answering the quiz. I'm assuming every week, and they missed one quiz. And it was mentioned that they said in the article, since they missed the quiz, they were about to have a heart attack. That's how, close they were. And so then the suspension came, and, it really, Tamkeen is more, it really changed the thinking of this person, right? And Tamkeen, at the end of the day, it's more than a youth. You look at other youth groups. Other youth groups are, they only do the basics. They only have activities. Some of them don't even have, they only teach you how to make wudu at the shemsa. But in Tamkeen, we teach everything here. Whatever you want to learn, we talk here. Everything is open. And so this person, they saw the full benefit, and inshallah they continue. That's kind of all what I have.
All right, great. All right, great. So I have a next, so I'll take it from here. So what I was told to do was to kind of talk about the article. I guess you could say kind of criticize it in some way. So a part that the Muhammad Suleiman that caught both of our attentions was the one that talked about the 5-week suspension and the one that talked about the quiz. So when we were thinking about the quiz, something that Sheikh reminded us came into our head. I think it was this time, I think it was when we were talking about this, but Sheikh was talking about how Tamkeen, it's meant to build up your iman on what you already have, because let's say Tamkeen didn't exist, people say without Tamkeen, I'd probably looking over, end up in the doing haram stuff, right? And the other thing was about the 5-week suspension, because our Sheikh says all the time in that article, there was stuff written that a bunch of girls promised to do. But our Sheikh always, as you can see, most of the girls did absolutely nothing. Did absolutely nothing. So I wanted to bring that out. And when people say something are you sure about that? Because when you read the article, the 5-week suspension, you can see all the promises the girls made. And you can see literally none of them happened. So I just want to say that. All right, so now open any questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions. What is the presentation?
I don't know.
So this question is mainly directed at Muslim. So why do you think? I remember you were talking about missing a quiz, and that's what made this article. That's what started the article. I want like really put yourself in the shoes of the author, why do you think missing that, which quiz do you think missing would really make this article? Because like I'm missing a lot of quizzes are missed and we move on, but like which quiz was missed, or what point in life would you see you have to be in, where missing a quiz will really make you rethink all of them here and try to reach the higher level?
Probably like, again, I don't remember.
Do you want me to give you the computer back? So
Quizzes that we had past year,
we will see if
but you know,
it works here.
I don't
Yes,
know.
paper side
It's
is.
not to say, but, I can tell you definitely something not like this is like, for example, the past couple, months, we've had a little bit of like useless quizzes, right? It's like, doesn't make 100% sense. So I would imagine like it's a quiz like, that's very, there's all like, it's very important. Obviously, I don't know, but
Sure.
I actually want to get my own answer on this question, because I know a lot of Tamkeens, they're like, they stay as committed as possible, and when they make one slip up, it's like, oh, I made a mistake. And I should have said before, back then, people, when they miss federal stuff, I'm not gonna each day at all. They would point at themselves, they would, what's it called? They would change themselves on another level. So, as you said, people, when they miss federal, say, I'm not gonna eat anything today at all. So, people that take it seriously, people that do this stuff, I think that this is what happened in this continuous situation, They were seeing the quiz as something big and as something that they would take more seriously. And when they realized that they missed a quiz, which you have like a good amount of time to answer, I think that's what made them like have that problem, like, oh no, this is a mistake. What did I do? I should rethink my decision. So that's my opinion on your question.
Someone already super successful at the beginning, and then they think one thing like, okay, I can't believe I missed it. Or you think it's mostly happens with someone, is it really consistent, and then something else happens with their life that makes them really, really big.
Well, at this computer, this article, how to think of it, it's like a story of their entire computer experience. It starts from the start. It talks about how they went down and how they became an admin and how they got this acquisition and everything. So your question was like, what made this computer feel bad? Like,
Yusuf, they're going wrong direction of this one.
In their life, or if they started like really rethink their life and want to take it down and create things.
well, I think it's also that they just want that they were trying to take it sensitive, because it also talks about how they're like coming more and actually coming for knowledge rather than coming for events and stuff like that. Because the story, like I said, it's like a story of their entire community experience. It talks about how they escaped for fun and a couple of their friends. But then you can see it starts to talk about how they came and they started to learn knowledge, started to come here to actually understand better about Islam. So I think it's just that they were like really into Islam and everything, and that's what made them want to like crash out, I guess, over missing this quiz.
alright, guys, let's do one more.
Yusuf.
So actually, I have to say, Olu, Jazakumullah khair for the presentation, but let me ask our presenters, have you ever read this article that you were presenting? Or not? Muhammad Sulaiman, Suna, Snackman was up, I don't know why, but have you read this article, ya Shabab? Did you read the full article, Muhammad? Hasuna, did you read the full article? So actually, this article, it looks like the main point was fully dropped. And this is why we made this article, and then it was followed by a parent discussion. Because this article is documenting a big problem in Tamkeen. And this is what we want to discuss now. And may Allah reward our presenters, but they never ever touched on the problem of this article. There was a girl. The article is titled The Highest Level of Tamkeen, and there are 3 levels in Tamkeen. Level number 1, people come for the activities and just attend the halaqa on the way. But they are coming for activities. Level number 2, they get attached to the halaqa after some time and they love the deen of Allah. They love to sit down and listen to the halaqa, regardless of the activities. This is second level, and I have seen some of the Tamkeeners moving from level 1, I'm just interested in activities and soccer, to level 2, I want to learn the deen at the intellectual level. Level 3 and the highest level of Tamkeen, I am coming to Tamkeen not because I am willing to learn my deen only, but I'm willing to help others understand their deen. So level 1, activities. 2, I'm coming to learn myself. Level number 3, I'm coming to help others. This girl, she came and she passed through level 1, 2, 3, and she was very excited. And she was one of the pillars of Tamkeen, and she was putting her heart in Tamkeen. Then her parents banned her from Tamkeen. And this is why we have a parent discussion after this article. And unfortunately, none of our presenters mentioned why we have a parent discussion. Whenever I see a Tamkeener very excited to go to the highest level in Tamkeen, and then the parent would tell his daughter or his son, do not go to Tamkeen anymore. There are many reasons. One reason, you are busy with your homework and school, no Tamkeen anymore. Or the parent who disagree with the fiqh matter with me. Or the parent would hear a rumor about me from other people without coming back and checking with me. And there are many people who hate Tamkeen, because in Tamkeen, to teach your kids reality, we need to attack bad people and say why they are bad, and they are attacking Tamkeen back. And some people here from the outside, without coming back to circle with me, and they just tell their kids, do not come to Tamkeen. But the discussion that we need the input of the parents. And whenever we had the parent meeting a couple of weeks ago, with one of these girls not coming to Tamkeen, who is going to be harmed? It is not just that girl. It is not the family of the girl who are depriving themselves from the reward this girl is giving to you. The ones who are harmed are every one of you. Because that girl was giving me the reports about who from the boys are texting who from the girls. So now I was blinded after this girl stopped coming to Tamkeen. So that girl, losing her means harm to all your boys and all your girls. Do you understand the damage that one parent, by a decision of one parent, regardless of why he made the decision, every one of you is harmed? And the other point I want to raise, whenever the dad or the mom bans a kid from coming to Tamkeen, what is the mentality of the kids? Are they going to get a say, my mom and dad are correct and Sheikh Muhammad Ali was wrong? Or will they say, we still believe in all the teachings of Muhammad Ali and we believe mom and dad are wrong? And more specifically, whenever you see people banned from Tamkeen for I don't know, for very long now, few months, and they are still answering the quiz. I know what is the heart, and my heart is broken for those kids that their dads, with their ignorance, they banned them from Tamkeen. And I know what damage they are causing to their kids, to themselves, and to Tamkeen. This article needs to be read by everybody. And the presenters did not read the article. If they read it, they did not understand it. And now this is the time, as in the schedule, parent discussion. Run it for how long you want to do, but take input from the parents. And then move to our last article, inshallah. Sorry, that was an oppression, the way you covered this article, ya shabab. You should have done better job in understanding the article. You did not. Yeah, lead a quick discussion. We still have probably a few minutes in the agenda for getting input from the parents on this. Take care, Stefan.
Do any parents want to say anything?
Parents.
So, this was the discussion that we had with, some of the parents were here. Were at Tamkeen for this particular discussion. And, you know, just for the sake of maybe motivating other people to want to be involved in the discussion. Our children, inshallah, here at Tamkeen are introduced to, as Sheikh said, can be interpreted as high levels of Islamic education and attachment to Islamic education. And if our children take this seriously, inshallah, then we will have children who will be the leaders of the next generation, who continue to perpetuate this education among their children and grandchildren and so on. If we get in the way of this, then we can disrupt chain of progress, most especially here in America. And so the importance of us to be on the side of, at least this is my belief, and I think this is a shared with some of the parents, Tamkeen. It is very important for us to be on the side of share for the children. There was a time, we talked about this before, you and I shared, and I think perhaps you and I had this discussion too. There was a time here in America, you know, back in the 80s and the 90s, where there was a certain kind of culture among parents, wherein if the children in the neighborhood were misbehaving, all of the parents collectively would be on the side of that child via being on the side of the parent. Honoring the parent by executing some sort of consequence to that child in absence of a parent, and then educating the parent about what happened once their presence was known. So unfortunately, what Chef just described, many of the parents, not just here in Tamkeen, but in the Muslim communities in general, many of us will side with our children, not knowing whether it is they are telling the truth about a situation, but maybe granting them, granting them they are. So we'll side with our children outside of their best interest, and we'll remove them from situations like Tamkeen. And what this does is it creates blockage between parents. So when we hear things about our children, whether we might hear something about our child that we never knew existed in them, it could be a rumor, it could be a fact. It is our responsibility to investigate this and not just listen to the words of children. We have to, as adults, come together in order to functionally keep them accountable. So as parents, we must be accountable together. If my child does something to your child, I expect to hear from you. And you can expect me to be on your side if my child was wrong. You can expect me to be on your side if my child hits your child, and you come to me and say, your child is lying, hit my child. I'm going to say to you, my brother, let's have a discussion about it, and then both of us will have a discussion with both of our children. And that's me supporting you after learning my child did something wrong. The wrong course of action is to say, my child will never do such a thing, and you're wrong. Because now I've set my child up for failure. I've created enmity between you and I, and potentially I'm going to disrupt both the children's education upon need by doing it. So inshallah, I think that this was just some sort of reflection for all of us to think about it. Much more.
This is promo for more parent discussions that are needed because many Tamkeeners are lost. They're lost from Tamkeen, stage number one. They're lost from Tamkeen, stage number two, and they lose connection with parents, stage number three. So whenever we call for a parent meeting, parents need, inshallah, to show up. From the past more than 10 years working with the youth, the girl who wrote this article is one instance, and of so many instances of people, boys and girls who wanted to help grow Tamkeen, take care of other kids, but they were banned by their parents for a reason or another, and the damage was on the entire community. I know you are tight on time, but again, whenever we ask for a parent meeting, please come and let's talk, inshallah.
Shan and Ismail. I know you guys are all tired, but inshallah, we have one presentation left. And this final presentation will be, don't sell the hayat of your sister without your own. No problem.
I just asked you to see something a little different. Oh, that's okay. I follow his name. It will take. I want to do something was useful. Inshallah. Where is the reason? Let's see. The actually it's 24 of mine. That one's passing. Get the charge. 15. And Japan, this one is still here. This one is here.
Where is our presenter? What is the?
You will look why this slide. We still have time, correct? This is the last one. Ah, you're here. See, check that. Huh? This is one. Ah, very good. Ah. What is the reason? Look, think about it. I think we're going to do this.
Not all pilot procedure for that of your own. So for our dungeon for today, Tana will begin by talking about why the article is read. Right? Is this article maybe interesting or problem? And if so, what is this about? So then we'll move on to kind of setting the definition for what specifically Haya is, right? It's the point of the article. We'll do a little bit of a breakdown on what it is, and more importantly, what it's not. Then we'll move on to what does it mean to actually have Haya, right? What does this look like to actually acknowledge this? It's a very important thing. It will conclude with the leading right or kind of interaction of Tamkeen's mission and Tamkeen's goal with higher. So starting with what the article is written. So basically, obviously, the article is committed to Tamkeen period to whatever, but more than that, it was more about it, right? It was a letter to who is the letter to? There's a letter to the Tamkeen girls. And not just a Tamkeen girl, but let's say any Muslim girl, right? Any Muslim woman who she cares about her image or she cares about, you know, just the way that she acts or the way that she looks at the way she looks her life is something that would be pleasing to all of them. And it's something that maybe really any woman who cares about how they act in general, how they conduct themselves. So this article, like I said, it's a letter to Tamkeen girls, and it was responding to an issue that kind of started to happen in Tamkeen, right? This issue was essentially, we started to see a lot of prioritization of kind of higher, for example, one girl over another, or the image of the community or whatever of one girl over another. So I guess the example of this would be, the example in the article I think is of Halafa. So you said, you know, for example, Sheikh was like, okay, the girls need to move forward or whatever. And I think something that we started to see was someone was kind of sticking back and saying, oh, you know, we'll stick back here or whatever, you guys go forward. And the reason behind this was to be something like, you know, I'm an old girl or whatever, I have to have this, like, that's not something that I can do. It's not, I'm above that level. And this is just one example. There's a few other ones, but we'll get into most of it. In general, seeing something like this, not just in Tamkeen, but Muslims in general, especially Muslim women, it's such a harmful thing, right? It's harmful because, number one, it shows that there's a serious issue with how we view each other, right? The relationships that we have, that we're at Tamkeen to the sake of Allah, it shows that, you know, the foundation of those relationships is not what it should be. It's not built on, for example, security and, you know, equality and these types of things, right? It shows that we don't have that mindset that, if this girl sitting next to me in the hafla, she's just like me. She's on the same level of me. She's equally deserving of having her hayat protected. However that looks, right? Whether it's letting her know, for example, hey, don't go in there, there's like there's guys in there or something, I don't know. Or something like that, right? Anything that, if I feel like I wouldn't do something, it's her right, the girl next to me, that I say, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't do this, or, you know, just make sure that she's aware and so yeah, that's what it shows. It shows an issue of relationships, and it also causes a lot of tension. Honestly, it causes a lot of also insecurity, right? Imagine, I want you to put yourself in that position. Actually, let's imagine that. Let's say we're all sitting together in the Hanabah, and everyone's girl right now. So imagine you're a girl, and Chef is saying, you guys need to move forward. And a girl looks at you, she says, you know what? I'm gonna stick back. If you go over there. What would that make you feel? How would that make you feel? What does that put in your mind, right? About maybe how this person feels about it. It's not something that anyone I think should have to experience. And it's not something that anyone should feel, right? That, you know, if I do something wrong, I'm okay with you doing it, right? See, having something like that happen to you, and even seeing it on so many other girls, is something that, you know, it's like heartbreaking. It shows that we're not on the same page, or we're not aligned, we don't have the same goals, and everything, like, why does that happen? Okay. Okay, so obviously, haya is a word that we've all heard, right? It's a word that we all tell our, for example, our daughters, our sisters, or whatever, have haya. When you go out, hijab, dress modestly, cover your halwa, whatever, even in the way that you speak, the types of things you speak about, for example, these are all things that we remind specifically, you know, Muslim women to be careful of. Right? We tell them, you know, for example, you're a girl, you shouldn't put yourself, you're a woman, you shouldn't put yourself in these positions, or you shouldn't, you know, be seen in these places and things like that. So it's definitely, it's not an, you know, an unfamiliar term, but I think it's really important to make sure that we have an accurate and correct understanding of this word, even though it's, you know, so common or commonly talked about. So here on the slide, we have a hadith mentioned as a body of prayer. Which says narrated until the Prophet who was passing by a man who was like admonishing or kind of reprimanding the brother regarding his hayat, right? It says the way that some of the Quran defines it is high shyness from committing religious indiscretion. So So he was reprimanding him for that. He was basically telling him, like, you're very strong. And I'm afraid that this is something that would harm you, right? Cause harm to you. And so in response to that, the Prophet was, he said, leave him, for haya is a part of faith. And I think that, that part of the hadith, it shows a lot. It shows a lot about what haya is, right? The Prophet said, this is on par with iman, right? This is a serious issue. And yeah, it's a serious issue, it's a very important thing. And it should be looked at as such, right? It's not just a trait that we should kind of be like, oh, we'll work on that slowly, or, one day, inshallah, I'll work on maybe this aspect of Haida or this aspect or whatever. It's something that we should see as important, right? If, for example, if you're like talking to the parents, right? If your daughter comes to you or your son comes to you and they say, oh, I feel like my iman is low, or I feel like I'm very low in this area, you would be concerned, right? So I think it's super, super important that we have, one lesson we can take from this hadith is that we have to have the same kind of outlook on hayat, for example, that we want to be done. We have to see it as a very important thing. So moving on to another hadith. The main part of this hadith is the Prophet says, if you don't feel ashamed, so if you don't feel ashamed from haya, or like it says pious shyness from committing religious indiscretions, then do whatever you like, right? Basically, if you don't have haya, if you don't have this trait, then it doesn't matter. Do whatever you want. And it's not do whatever you want in the way of like, okay, there's no wrong answer, or you're in a safe zone or whatever. No, it's do whatever you want in the way that if you reach this stage where you don't have this trait, it doesn't even matter. Do whatever you want because there's no value in it if you don't have this trait. So looking at that last hadith, that shows that, it says haya as a part of iman, something that we have to have this high of love. And if we don't, when we find ourselves in a position where we feel like, okay, we don't have it or something like that, then that's a serious cause for concern. That's something that we need to see and we need to reflect on and say well, something is wrong, and we need to proceed in a way that fixes this problem. It's a very serious thing. Okay, so moving on to a little breakdown on more specifically what it is. And I've kind of talked generally about it. Let's get a little bit more specific. So I'm going to start with what it's not, because I think that's a lot more important, at least in this stage of the presentation, than what it is. So starting with what it's not, number one, haya does not equate to timidness, right? Timidness is, I think if you look up the word, it's like lacking of courage or being like easily frightened or something like that. And it's a generally negative word, right? All the synonyms are, they're really sad. It's like depressed and anxious and like, it's like something, you don't want those words to describe you. So this is, haya is not hand in hand with timidness, with having a lot of confidence or a lot of courage or anything like this, right? Haya is something that is done to protect your image or your honor or whatever, in a way that doesn't make you weak, right? We don't say that, oh, a person, whether it's a man or woman, in haya, that makes them, no, it's just the wrong way to look at this. How can we say that, a trait that the Prophet or something said is part of iman? How can we say that that's something to weak? That doesn't make any sense, honestly. So that's a really, really important thing. That's a mindset that I think a lot of people have. And something I've heard a lot, that, if I have haya, like I'm going to be like a shell of a person or something. And, so that mindset really shows that you don't understand what haya is. So that's the first point, it doesn't equate to timidness. And then the second point is, it's not something that should be done on a superficial level, right? We don't come out for Muslim, we don't come out and do it so that we can have people say, oh, look what she's wearing, look how she's dressed, right? She's covering her own shop, she's like this, whatever, and have people make these assumptions about it, right? We don't do things like that. And it goes for men and women, just an example for women, but it goes both ways. We don't do these things, and we don't embody this trait so we can portray ourselves in a certain way. And then lastly, this is probably the most important part. This is exactly what the article is attacking, is that haya is not something that we have at the expense of other people, right? If you find yourself in a position where, you feel like maybe you're in a situation where you feel like your haya might be compromised, right? When it's entering maybe a place that you shouldn't enter or whatever. Not in like, okay, I'm gonna go to this like halal place or whatever and indulge or whatever, but like, I don't know, like you have to pass through an area or something like that, whatever. If you find yourself in that position,
What do we do? That is usually happen.
and we find ourselves in a position where we are, doing something, protecting ourselves from some indecent act or whatever, and it's harming another girl, right? It's maybe putting another girl in that same position, so that you don't have to be in that position, that's wrong, right? That's a complete breach of what Hayat means this entirety, right? That you protect yourself and you allow someone to be subjected to that same harm that you didn't want to be subjected. I think that's, if you take nothing away from this probably really long presentation, I think that's the most important part, that it's not at the expense of you. Okay, so moving on to what it is. So the first point about haya is, I'm gonna look at the second bullet point actually, not the first one, is that haya is defined by sharia, right? It's not defined by personal opinion and, arguments, whatever. As maybe I say, like, as a person, I feel like, I can go outside and talk about indecent things or whatever, about weird comments, I don't know. Right? We don't go and say that that's because that's how we feel, that's how I feel like, right? And this is according to Islam. That's not what we do, right? And this is how everything works in Islam, right? We take everything by the Sharia, the Ahl Sunnah, and we don't make up our own, opinions or whatever. So I think really generally, right? When we think of haya, we think about like covering your home. I think is probably the biggest one. A lot of people tend to think about kind of physical aspect, right? Covering your home, maybe like things like lowering your gaze, like I said, not talking about like weird topics or not talking too much. Like these are kind of some general things that we see, right? Yes. So and so it's also good and helpful, right? But I think the definition, I like the definition of and the hadith here. So it says pious shyness from committing religious indiscretions, or I think another definition that we looked at was like something, it's like a quality that you have that stops you from doing something that is like wrong, or something that would harm someone or harm yourself or whatever. Right? When you like live in that way, right? That you're shy or whatever to do something that basically that also will be displeased with, right? Something that's just not a good thing to do or whatever. You walk through that, that's a form of taqwa, honestly. Everything is about, would this please Allah? Would this harm someone or not? Would this harm me or not? So that's a really, really good point. So third point, haya is also situational. It requires situational awareness, right? Context. We can't go and say that, for example, if a girl wants to go maybe ask a question in Halaqa, for example, we can't say that no matter what, in any context, her speaking up, this is wrong. Right? For her to ask a question, we can't make a statement. We also can't go on the opposite side and say that no, if she that's the main point. That's the main point, is that we can't say that, for example, to always speak about whatever is wrong, right? We have to look at the situation, the context, right? And it's kind of a hard thing to explain, I think, but I don't know, just as a Muslim, it's a very important quality that we're balanced, right? That we look at things with balance, and we don't always, for example, take one outlook and always have to say something or whatever, be present, anything like that. And we also don't go the opposite way and saying, I'm never going to talk, I'm never going to do this, and we restrict ourselves in this instead. And the last point that I'll say on what it is that haya is for men and women, right? It's men and women. Emphasize and. It's not something that's limited to women, right? I think we hear it more in the context of women, things like hijab and whatever, don't do this, don't go here, don't do this kind of thing. But it's something that applies to men too. So when we talk about, so now that we understand like what haya is, what it's not, and the importance of it and all those things, what we have, something that we have to understand, right? If you don't understand this, it's gonna be honestly impossible for you to embody this trait. You have to understand that as, whether it's on the Muslim women, Muslim men in general, as Muslims, we're all the same. We're all equal, we're all on the same playing field. Right, and it's really important that, we recognize that, and a part of recognizing that is wanting the same things for other people that you want for yourself. And of course, one of the things that we all want for ourselves, right, everyone in this room can probably agree on that we never want to be looked at in a bad way, for example, whether it's by other people, or our family, our friends, our sharing, or whatever, and most importantly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think that's at the top of the chain, right? So if we feel that, something is objectively immodest or something is objectively wrong or whatever, and we say, I don't want that to be something that I do. I don't want this to be something that is stepped on my name or whatever. We should feel the same way about other Muslims, about other women, or other Muslim women, other Muslim men, whatever. If I think that, I don't know, it's wrong to do this one specific thing, but I see another Muslim girl and she goes and does that thing, isn't that an issue in me that I see that and I don't say anything? That I see that this thing is haram or whatever, and I let the girl next to me go and do it and I don't say anything and I don't help her? Isn't that an issue? That's just a serious issue. So that's super important, that we want the same things for ourselves that we want for other people. And I think when you kind of have that mindset in any relationship that you have, the relationship is going to be a lot stronger, right? That you would never sacrifice the other person or something they would, their feelings or their image or anything like that. You would never sacrifice that for yourself. Moving on to the second point, I really respond to that. Haya is not always black and white, right? I think this goes back to that point of like situational awareness. As Muslims, we need to be balanced, right? And we need to be able to assess a situation and say, how should I act in this situation? How should I respond in this situation in the best possible way? So the reason that Haya is not always black and white is because obviously as humans, we're all created differently, right? We have different personality types. You might see one person who maybe is more outgoing and he or she is whatever, more comfortable talking and, being seen or whatever, obviously within, okay factor, that type of thing. And then you might see another girl who is maybe, or another girl or guy or whatever, who's on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, right? That they don't like to talk or whatever, and, they prefer to kind of minimize themselves. And of course, both of these things are wrong. There's something wrong with these things. But I think what is wrong with that is when we say that, okay, either side of the spectrum is completely wrong, right? For anyone to always be speaking a lot or whatever, always being present, for example, I don't know, to say that is always wrong, and then even to go on the opposite side and say that to not speak as much or to not do these things as much, to say that that's wrong, to treat it in that type of way, that's also wrong, right? You have to, like I said, you have to have balance. One of the best traits that a Muslim can have is balance. Right? Even I think we saw that in the debate earlier that, like we said, both sides are saying about have balance. Even if you have an opinion about, oh, I think this, and maybe the opinions are completely different, at the end of the day, everyone has balance, even if they differ. And the same thing applies to this concept. You have to have balance in any context.
Laughing in the middle of the talk either means you're doing good or finish up, we are tired. I don't know what this means. Huh? You already gonna go back to 20 minutes. Yeah.
I'm going to really fast. This last point is one thing I didn't mention in the article, I think as much as needed to be mentioned, is the nuance of Haya based on, I think it's not enough time. Honestly, we don't go and say that, fitna is, for example, I think this is the mindset, the wrong mindset, so I'll say that, obviously there's always going to be fitna or whatever, so we should never talk, we should never do anything, we should never speak up, we should never do anything, right? obviously that's the wrong mindset. Like I said, you have to help out. But I think in some situations, you have to know that sometimes something may be technically under the boundaries of Haya or whatever, but it's not the best thing to do in that situation, right? Sometimes you can walk past that group of guys or whatever and put your head down and be quick and there can be modesty in that, but sometimes it's not the best solution. And there's a lot of scenarios like that where technically something is okay to do or whatever, it's not haram, there's no issue in it or whatever, but it's not the best situation to do. So my last point is, actually it's a question. Does anybody know what the motto of Tamkeen is? Without opening the Tamkeen website, does anybody know what that is? When you search Tamkeen.us and right above that big red donation button, there's a slogan in white.
Stop it, get some help.
Okay, just shout it out. I can. What is it? Exactly. The model of Tamkeen is building, and this is not something that we can do in an environment where we don't all respect each other, right? Where we don't all see each other as the same, protect ourselves the same way we protect each other. Without a good environment, without a good Muslim, whatever environment, there is no good Muslim. So we need to stop this weird mindset like that. I don't know if anyone knows who this person is, but this is a scientist, American scientist. His name is
That's Michael.
a lot of non-Muslims, a lot of the science that came from this country came from this person.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, like a lot
I
of.
just said Michael B.
Like Albert Einstein, they're on the same level. So as this really acclaimed, he wrote many peer-reviewed articles. As he said, stop it, get some help, okay? Fix your mindset, please.
I'm sure he will.
And that is it.
I want to say I'm very proud of the haya of all the kid girls, wallahi. Wallahi, extremely proud of the haya of all the kid girls. And for the buffering problem, you may consider buying more memory for her, inshallah.
I need better Wi-Fi.
I'm going to bring you guys the glass tidings, be quiet. The prizes for the testers are on the way right now. Sure, all the visitors are really excited for that, but until they come, we're gonna have actually this on an actual short Q&A. Hopefully, there's actual questions time, not just closing, right? Anyone have any questions?
I do. Thank you, good sir. We should. So the article that was just discussed, I have a question regarding the haya. You made the point to say that haya, which I think is very accurate, God original. Pretty. You made the point to say that haya is not like timid, weakness or cowardice, which I think is a very accurate assessment. Haya has nothing to do with those things. And I think as Muslims, we all recognize what haya looks like to be seated. But I think as many of us become indoctrinated into this culture here, on top of being in this culture here, in this society, maybe outsiders to Islam view haya in the way that we express it as Muslims as weakness, whether in men or in women. And so is there some way, and the reason why I make that point is because a lot of the times in a society where people can be predatory, they want to bully, they want to mock. Is there a way to preserve your haya while also confronting these sorts of situations where people think your haya is weakness, or is it necessary to do that?
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
That was all.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Is there a way to preserve your haya The point that you had made in your article, that haya is not akin to weakness. And what I'm saying is that for outsiders who aren't outsiders, they could potentially see your haya and the way they express it as weakness. And because they see it as such, they could be predatory, they could bully, they could mock for issue. Is there a way to preserve your haya and confront this issue, whether a man or confront this issue, or is it even necessary to? Is that clear?
Really, really good question.
I know, I asked the questions.
That was a very good question, or it's a very good point that you make, and I think it's definitely something that does happen, something that we see a lot. Maybe not a lot, I don't know, I think for example, like, I go to Prince during Ramadan, right, and you see like a lot of, like, you guys know those people that they sit on the floor and they pretend to be like homeless, and they're like asking so much money and stuff. I think that's an example of that, where people see, for example, that Muslims are good in this way or whatever, and take advantage of it. It's something we see a lot in a lot of different ways. I think the way that we combat that when it comes from non-Muslims is being aware. I think the first step to really any problem is being aware that it's wrong, right? So being aware that, okay, this is something that may happen in this time, however, and being confident in yourself, right? Being confident in your identity or whatever, and just knowing how to combat it, right? So for example, if, I don't know, maybe you're like a man in the workplace or something, I don't know, it's a really random example, but you're a man in the workplace, for example, and maybe you're, I don't know how this works. Your boss is like, you're supposed to, you're weak, or you have minus, I don't know. In that situation, that would probably never happen, but in that situation, definitely having that confidence, being like, no, like, obviously you're saying is wrong and stuff, like, don't, that's not true. And then kind of continuing on, right? Not letting people who do those stupid things impact you, right? Because at the end of the day, no, it's not true, right? You know that just because, you maybe as a Muslim man or whatever, you don't let your daughter do certain things or whatever, you know that that's not because you're putting her up weak man or something stupid like this. So you know what it is. So forget those people, honestly. Who cares about their mindset, right? I'm not saying who cares about it, it's not real, it's definitely real. But have that mindset, then who cares? What are they gonna do? Does their opinion affect what Allah told me, how he told me to act? No, it doesn't. So who cares?
So we should listen to the scientists that you.
Might not be doing it.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that gonna have a very good presentation and very good it's a part of our team. So the question that I have about raised, some people in the Western culture can consider that maybe having haya as a timidness or a weakness, or maybe they don't know that what they are quiet, or maybe that's why they are not coming to the truth. So when this kind of situation can be best dealt one-on-one, but when you're in a public situation, it could be a little tricky. So you just need to be, just like you said, be mindful of it. And if you think that the damage is going to be higher than the being quiet, then do speak up. But speak up with a hand, right? Just like you mentioned. Being loud does not mean you're intellectual. Just make a very simple statement, and will shut many people out. The loudest person is not always the most articulate. It's not the most, rational in their arguments. So the volume of somebody's voice is not equal to the strength of the argument. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think just really fast, a really good example of that is, I think that explains how it's the woman was at Microsoft I forget the details of the situation. Basically, there was something going on there. I think it was like yeah, like them supporting Saudi or something, and it was like a Muslim woman that spoke up to the CEO or something. Like, you're Muslim. How can you support this? How can you support this code that you sent and use against Muslim people, right? And it's killing Muslims or whatever. And I think there was a lot of discussion on this of, is what she did right? And the possibility of the haya, for example, there was a lot of nuance in that, right? So I think what you just said definitely kind of attacks that, right? And it shows the reality of the situation that yes, I think that's an example of what you said.
I was telling it's been in the morning, once you are done, shut off the light, lock the doors, after you are done, okay? Good job, like amazing job, mashallah. And now, I think this is the time for people to announce. All of you, Allah, did amazing job in all articles, in all presentation. Those are one of, alhamdulillah, the best days of the year. When we listen to you, listen, Ayman, before I come to you, you and Yusuf Osman and the one next to you. But before this, there was an issue between me and some of the girls, Fatma more specifically, Fatma, because Fatima Sadiqi, you did not actually tell us how to get dressed over here. So I tried to dress to the best of my ability. That's the good or the usual, okay. But I have another model of dressing that is going to be showing up here in a second, but maybe we have one introduction before he ever.
Yeah, all right. I want to give you guys the glad tidings. Now it's the time that we've all been waiting for. The presenters will now be getting their prizes. I want to bring in our wise and decorated MC. Please, come on, come in. Give them a round of applause. Round of applause.
But I have to show them on the stage. You're covering, your ass. Over here, you for a second, please. So, how did this sound, Fatima, to you? Is it good of an attire for the conference or what? You didn't explain. You said no sweatpants, no sweatshirt, but you didn't say anything. So, is it better or the way Yusuf is dressed? Come on, Yusuf. How do you like that, Shabab? Okay. Yeah, the graduation. And actually, the gown, we have some rules. The one for the bachelor, the one for the masters. This is the one for the PhD. And even whenever you get an academic position in a university, and you are handing the people their certificates for their graduation, there are different protocols. Professors may be aware of this, and usually, take this one for a second. Well, here we have. So usually at the time of graduation, whenever you're getting your grad or whatever, you come in the stage when you are holding this in your hand, and then the professor would go. This is called the hooding ceremony. So we put the hood like this. I don't know the right way. From the distance, usually the student, I don't know why I keep hanging that first, with this like this, okay, anyway, I'll do this later to Yusuf. And as I said, whenever you're a professor, you keep dressed in the same gown you took while you are receiving your PhD. So you will see multiple professors, each one wearing a different gown with different color, based on the university and based on the school you graduated from. But here is a shabab, one message I just wanted to give from here. This gown, does it look like the gown Hussein is dressed in? Can you show us, Hussein, how you're dressed? Aren't they looking similar? The gown of Yusuf and the dress of Hussein. What I was told, and maybe some of you, Shabab, you need to research these ceremonies whenever they were made. We, the Muslims, are the ones who carried knowledge to the West. And for graduation, they were dressed like our sheikhs. And this tradition continues till today. Doesn't it look like the zoom? Doesn't this look like the imama or the turban that sheikhs put on their heads? This is because we, the Muslims, are the ones who carried over knowledge to the West. then we became useless. But وتلك الأيام نداولها بين الناس. Those days we would remain between people. فإن the coming crown, it is gonna be for you. Give a round of applause to Professor Wilson.
You're sure. So now we give the award for you are fully present. So we do not tell us who are here, whether it's sweat pants, sweat shirt.
Alright, guys, inshallah, we'll be giving everyone today a certificate. And then when you come up here, you can grab one piece of candy from here. Okay? So let's start.
What is that?
From here? Yeah, and also, where is our media team? Where is Muhammad? Can you take pictures whenever they come? And the girls, we're going to hand it over here. And if your parent are here, they can come and be with you in the picture. And then girls, they can come have their pictures over here, inshallah. One of the girls can take the pictures of the girls as they are getting their certificates.
All right, firstly, Adam, how many people come to the stage?
They're looking if there's an empty one or not. Looks like.
Good job.
Okay, and we have a certificate for one of the presenters. This is the certificate for all presenters. Do you know anyone with the name of Delilah? Come to me, Delilah. And then there is another certificate for the presentation that was the. Oh, yes, come, Delilah. Come. Choose. Yeah, the bigger, yeah. And then I have another certificate for. Sorry, I'm buffering. Aqila. Okay, back to you, Ashraf. Who's next? Okay. These are girls and then this one. Let me give the girls and then inshallah, yeah, let the boys join now. Where is Lena? Will be on the way. Okay, and we have Nusayba Abdi, but she was not able to come today. She's sick. Make sure you make dua for Meruka and this Nusayba. And we have another one for our Boba manager. We have one of our great, amazing presenters for today, نسيبة صديقي. And I have actually one for one of the girls who is anonymous for her article, the highest level of Tamkeen. She didn't want to present. She's not allowed to present, as you know. She's not here. And we kept the name anonymous for the highest level of Tamkeen. May Allah grant her the highest level in Jannah. يلا شباب احنا قلنا كويس.
Okay, next, I'm gonna please come up to the stage.
Yes, he forgot, please come up.
Is here again. My God, it keeps
All right, Ibrahim, can you come? Hamza, come up here.
Come, Hamza.
I'm gonna chop back, come up to the stage.
Ahmed.
Okay, guys, now move on to our award-winning articles. Now, this article reward is for the best written article. And before I announce the reward winners, please shout whatever you think won this award.
He didn't even write an article, حبيبي. He doesn't even know how to read and write.
The winner, the best article at the third Tamkeen reflection article conference. It's under the content.
So Yusuf, how many awards total do we have?
One last one.
Four. Give it to his,
Right, we're gonna announce the second award-winning article. This one is the most researched. Again, try guessing who it is. Real close, you know, obviously really close. The most researched article is certificate going to Omar Siddiqui.
give it to his dad. And give him his candy as well. Give him. Thank you. I think you're thinking back. And with their art, and actually all those awards are judged by the parents, okay? They were not judged by the keeners. They were judged by the parent. There was a jury committee from the parents. And I have two of these awards going to the girls. The most passionate article goes for the one who is talking and not listening to me. Come, Delilah. Yay. Amazing, Delilah. And the award of the most memorable article. The most memorable article. And actually, I want to mention Hasuna award. The article يا شباب, and all the parents are شباب as well. They didn't take its time in the presentation, and it has a lot of details that we were not able to present today, which really makes this article the most memorable. Goes for Radia. And one more award. Something special. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, it's got a level award, the analogy, the last award, best presented. I would like to thank the parents, my mom, and Hada Saima for volunteering to read all these articles and grade them. Please give them a huge round of applause. Guys, are you ready for the You'll need a bigger support to show up. I just want to make sure. Before I mention the winner of this award, I want to read what the parent paper said. The importance of Tamkeen, this presenter must allow represent Tamkeen the best. His confidence, dedication, and level of presentation at his age is what Tamkeen is looking for in the future Tamkeen leader. His tribal was well represented with values that uphold Tamkeen. His timeline as a Tamkeener represented his growth and journey from a mere Tamkeener to Tamkeen admin. His promises highlight that there is hope and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Please welcome Hamza Hassan to the stage. Hassan, you guys can get a candy.
Everyone going to be so favorable and you're getting real money here, I guess, Hamza, inshallah. But give me some different يا شباب, regardless of whatever awards we are given over here, Hamza, back from you. Regardless of شباب of whatever awards we are giving here, you know what is the best award, Hamza? No. Award, Hamza, is what you can give as a reward from Allah for writing this article. Maybe one of you, Shabab, wrote an article. Maybe whenever the parents or the jury committee were reading the article, they did not get the point. But the one Hamza wrote the article with sincerity, hoping that his message would go to Allah for the sake of Allah. The award Hamza is already given to Allah on the day of judgment. Imagine Hamza on the day of judgment. It is not by sitting here in this hall. It is on the day of judgment in front of everybody where Allah calls your name or the angels will call your name, Hamza, and give you the reward. Can you imagine? If you are working day and night, Hamza, for the sake of Allah, and then you come on the day of judgment, whenever everybody from the time of Adam alayhi salam till the end of time are gathered in one place, but Allah will call the name of someone who wrote an article sincerely, that we did not understand, we did not give him the award here in dunya, but Allah knows his intentions, and Allah will reward him on the day of judgment. فأكيد يا شباب, for sure, جزاكم الله خير for everyone who wrote an article, for everyone who spent the time to write that article. I want to make sure we are not running after just a chocolate bar, but we are running after the reward of Allah. If this is the size of the chocolate bar we can get in dunya, Hamza, what will be the size of the chocolate bar in Jannah? Big.
Yeah.
Can you give me an estimate? No, I need the one that you will get on the Holy Church. I, as a mayor, am the one who is teaching in Tamkeen, what I'm looking for in Hamza, and what I'm asking Allah for. And I think all the parents who share this with me is on the day of judgment. Any good deeds you are doing, Hamza, it gets in the balance of good deeds of your sheikh and your parents. Sounds good? خلاص بقى, return this is just for the photo. This is for the picture. يلا جزاكم الله خير. يلا Who are you? Yes, group picture, yes. Can we get more? The boys here on the stage and the fathers for group picture, and all the moms and the girls for group picture over there. Group picture. Hold the boys, hold the fathers, the mothers, and go to the other side. يا شباب Okay, three, go. Are we doing one like this? Oh, No, stop, go back here. I'm gonna ask you. What are you doing? Stop, stop. Leave. That's me on my face. That's me on Remember, your man, come help me get the stuff up there. Okay, sure. Shabab, clear the stage for the girls. Clear the stage. يلا بنات the stage is yours.
السلام عليكم شيخ.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله بارك الله جزاك الله خير. شباب حمزة get off the stage please. I'm calling your phone Yusuf.